I recently survived 3 terrifying caving experiences that should have killed me. I never should have opened that door. The moment I did, a chill snaked down my spine. This wasn't just any door, it was the entrance to the cavern. Dark. Foreboding. A swirling abyss that whispered secrets of the deep. I was just supposed to explore, to experience the thrill of adventure. But now, I was staring down the throat of terror. My everyday life was simple. Coffee in the morning, work at my desk, weekends filled with the mundane. Nothing prepared me for what lay waiting in that cave. No one had told me the stories. The legends of shadows that danced when no one was looking. Of strange noises that crept through the air, resembling whispers of lost souls. Yes, caving had intrigued me, but the dread hadn't sunk in until I was standing there, heart racing, staring into darkness that felt alive. The smell hit first, a damp, musty scent like rotting wood mixed with something metallic. The darkness felt cold, far colder than the air outside. I took a step forward, and the sound of my footfall echoed, sending shivers racing down my spine. It shouldn't be this quiet. Where was the sound of water? The drip of the cave? Instead, an unsettling silence lingered, thick and suffocating, as if the shadows themselves were waiting, holding their breath. Then I heard it, a faint sound. Just a rustle, like something shifting in the dark. My heart pounded louder than my breaths. Each time I thought I heard it again, the noise faded into silence. I pressed on, trying to shake off the fear, but the sensation only grew. Something was there. I could feel it, watching. A chill ran up my back, and I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder. Just shadows, but shadows can be deceiving. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed behind me. It was as if a heavy metal door had slammed shut. Panic flooded my veins. Was someone else down here? Or was it just the cave itself, playing tricks on my mind? I spun around, squinting into the dim light that barely pierced the darkness. Nothing but whispering shadows and bated breath. I took a deep breath, but it caught in my throat. The walls felt like they were closing in, then a laughter. Soft, mocking, echoing through the cavern, chilling me to the core. It wasn't human. My pulse quickened. I wasn't alone. I turned on my heel, racing back the way I came, footsteps rapid and frantic. I couldn't shake the feeling of being chased, of something right behind me, breaths laboring in the dark. Suddenly, just as I reached the door, I heard it again, clearer this time, heavy footsteps. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. Would it open? Would I escape? I took another step only to find the door slamming shut before I could grasp the handle. A scream tore from my throat, echoing like a wild animal in pain. Silence swallowed it whole. And then, in the suffocating blackness, a figure emerged. I felt my heart stop. It moved closer, closer. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook violently as I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. I was trapped. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure loomed closer, its outline shifting and flickering like a shadow caught between worlds. My instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet felt glued to the stone floor, cold and hard beneath me. It was featureless, a void that devoured the light around it, and yet it radiated a malignant energy that crawled over my skin. I could feel the weight of its presence, heavy and oppressive, suffocating my will. Just then, the laughter erupted again, a haunting melody that reverberated through the cavern, mingling with my fear. It seemed to swirl around me, wrapping me in an embrace of despair, taunting me with every echo. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered, a voice like nails on chalkboard, each word tearing at the very essence of my sanity. Where was I? Why was I here? The figure stretched out an arm toward me, its limb elongating, the darkness trailing behind like smoke. In that moment, clarity hit harder than the cold dread gripping my heart. This thing was not just a mere shadow, it was the pure embodiment of the cave's wrath, the guardian of its deepest secrets. With a horrifying clarity, I understood it was not merely my fear that had brought it here, but my curiosity. My reckless endeavor to uncover the truths of this cursed place was a call to the very horrors that dwelled in its depths. It craved the unworthy, it desired the breach of innocence. I was the foolish wanderer, and it delighted in my terror. Panic clawed at my throat as I forced myself to pivot, adrenaline flooding through my veins as I tore away from the dark entity. I scrambled backward, my hands searching for any semblance of safety in the unyielding darkness. The laughter became more frenetic, echoing as though a multitude of souls held hands within that shadow. I hated its mocking chorus, each note striking the rhythm of my pounding heart that I stumbled into a narrow crevice, pressing my body into the rock. My breath came in frantic bursts, the damp air laced with moisture that chilled me to the bone. The laughter continued, curling and creeping through the tight fissures as if it sought entry into my mind, an insidious invitation to lose all sanity. Trailing behind me was the whispering, a chorus of voices dangling just beyond comprehension, weaving tales of despair and lost hope. As I crouched there, my trembling hands searching for solace against the jagged rock, I caught a glimpse of something glinting in the dark. A piece of metal half buried in the mud. My heart quickened with newfound resolve. Was it a tool? Could it be the key to escaping this nightmare? With a sudden rush of courage, I lunged toward it, hands grasping at the cold, metallic surface. But the moment I touched it, the shadows around me shifted violently, swirling like a tempest. The laughter abruptly ceased, replaced by a cacophony of lamentation that wailed through the cave, a symphony of strife that drowned out my heartbeat. The shadows elongated, stretching and twisting, reaching for my soul, yearning to pull me back into the void that I could feel the entity's presence intensifying, a palpable hunger that gnawed at the edges of the dark. I had to escape. But as I rose to my feet, sword of metal clutched in hand, another sound emerged, more footsteps, and this time they were not just one. Multiple, heavy, indistinct forms moving ever closer to my hiding place, merging with the whispers, weaving a desperate tale of inevitability. I glanced back into the shadows, my pulse racing. The laughter had returned, now echoing just before the footfalls, a leaden pulse of dread reminding me I was not free yet. I was still trapped within this underground nightmare, surrounded by the echoes of those who had come before and found no way out. And then, out of the depths, a soft voice broke through the chaos, calling my name in a gentle whisper. "Help me," it pleaded. But was it a plea from the shadows, or from the depths of my own mind? I froze, paralyzed by uncertainty, and as I turned to see the source, the shadows billowed around me. I had to choose, to follow a voice that could lead to salvation or plunge deeper into the oblivion, surrendering my fate to the darkness. Just as I made up my mind, a cold hand wrapped around my ankle, pulling me back into the suffocating blackness. With a gasp, I stumbled, teetering on the brink of the unknown. The darkness that surrounded me roared its pleasure, and as I fell, a chilling realization washed over me. I was not the first to hear that voice, and this time I might not be the last. The grip on my ankle tightened, a vice of ice that threatened to pull me into the dark expanse below. My instincts screamed for me to fight, to kick and claw at the unseen hand, but the sheer terror rooting me in place left me powerless. As I struggled, I could feel the darkness pulse around me, an entity thrumming with anticipation as I dangled precariously at the edge, suspended between despair and faint hope. The faint whisper still lingered, calling my name, weaving a spell that infused confusion into my thoughts. "Help me please," it implored once more, softer this time, as if it feared being overshadowed by the cacophony of dreadful wails that surrounded me. My own voice protested in my mind, warning me that any hand reaching up from the shadows could just as easily lead me toward oblivion. With a desperate surge of adrenaline, I swung my free leg and kicked blindly, striking solid ground. The force broke the grip momentarily, and I tumbled sideways, crashing against the jagged rock, my breath exploding out of my lungs. Pain pulsed through my body, but I ignored it, scrambling to regain my footing, my mind a whirlpool of frantic thoughts. I had to run, I had to get away. The surrounding cries morphed into a disorienting symphony of voices, a clash of despair and longing mingling together like a sickening melody fueled by fear. Each step I took reverberated against the cave's walls, prompting the shadows to writhe and reach, hungry for my return. It was as if the very cave itself hungered for my essence, eager to claim me as one of its own. I stumbled deeper into the cavern, blindly searching for an escape, the contours of the walls slick with blood. The metallic tang assaulted my senses, purged of all light and hope. I could swear I felt eyes tracking me, vague, shadowy figures lurking just beyond the periphery, whispering in a language older than time, coaxing me to stay, to join their cell of misery. The light from my dwindling flashlight flickered as I neared a fork in the path. Panic flooded my veins as I realized the trail split into two treacherous routes, one veering sharply to the left, swallowed by an unquenchable darkness, another to the right, where the faintest glimmer of something, perhaps hope, beckoned. But which one would lead me to freedom and which would plunge me deeper into hell? With no time to deliberate, I veered left, guided by instinct, the laughter that had haunted me previously now growing distant as if it were aware of my choice. My desperation fueled my speed, my heart drumming urgently as I pressed onward. Each footfall echoed like a war drum, pounding against the cavern walls, an ever-present reminder of the horrors looming behind me, but as I ventured deeper, the shadows coiled tighter around my desperate form, muting the sound of my own breathing. The air thickened, crackling with a tension that suffocated all rational thought. Then, a flicker of movement caught my eye, a figure darting through the shadows, too swift to fully comprehend. My breath hitched, instinct prompting me to run faster, but the glimmer of something familiar pulled at my mind. "Help me," the voice returned, clearer now, pleading. I skidded to a halt, my heart plummeting as I recognized the timbre. It was a voice I had known, one that belonged to someone I thought lost, someone whose fate was entwined with my own misery. I could almost see her silhouette, pale and fragile against the backdrop of darkness, the very picture of despair that twisted my gut. "Is that you?" I called out, but my voice cracked and faltered against the oppressive silence. The shadows seeped into my thoughts, urging me to come closer, spinning me into doubt. Did I truly wish to grasp that hope, or was it merely another trap laid by the cavernous malevolent spirit? I was drawn forward, seemingly helpless against the force tugging at my core, urging me to reach for her even as a chilling realization took root in my heart. I could feel the realness of her presence slipping away, drowning in the wordless whispers that pulsed around us. "Don't!" Her voice shattered, piercing the air, filled with raw fear. "Run! Please, I'm not real." "You must," but before she could finish, the shadows erupted with a vengeance. The walls quaked as dark figures coalesced, swirling around me like a storm, grasping at my arms and legs, challenging my will to escape the encroaching darkness. As they closed in, I lunged back, desperation igniting hope once more. And then, an icy grip around my throat silenced me. I gasped, clawing at my neck, choking on the air thick with despair. The last thing I saw before the shadows engulfed me was her pale face twisting into something grotesque, warning me without a voice, merging with the writhing mass behind her, a tragic ending that ensured I was never meant to leave. As my vision blurred, consciousness wavering, I felt myself slipping away, tumbling into an abyss where the boundaries between reality and nightmare faded into nothingness. The last echo of laughter rang in my ears, louder than ever, as the last remnants of hope shattered around me. In that moment, an unmistakable thought pierced through the fog: I was not alone. Whatever came next, the cave was not finished with me yet. Then, darkness swallowed me whole, leaving behind only the shattering scream of a soul forever lost. Cold fingers of panic wrapped around my heart as I blinked against the sheath of darkness. I could feel the icy breath of the cave sweeping over me like a shroud, wrapping tighter and tighter with every labored breath I attempted to draw. Had I merely passed out? Was I still being tormented by the monstrosities lurking just beyond my consciousness, or had I truly crossed into some other realm, a void where hope, like light, dared not tread? The stillness caressed my senses, and I strained to listen. There was something there, undeniable. A rhythm, a heartbeat. No, it was more sinister echoing whispers strung together, like an ancient incantation surged through the depths of my mind, promising secrets too dreadful to bear. With great effort, I forced myself to rise, my body protesting from exhaustion and pain. I was on the damp, uneven ground of the cave still, but my surroundings felt different. The air was heavy with tangy copper, the aftermath of what had transpired, but the walls now pulsed with a soft luminescence, a sickly blue glow that painted the cavern in shades of ghostly sorrow. An oppressive weight pressed against my chest, and as I stood, I grasped at the remnants of lingering clarity, desperately urging my mind to recount my last thoughts that I was lost, teetering between worlds. The anguished wails and whispering pleas faded in and out like dying embers of a fire, but then, other sounds began to surface. I heard the slide of something long and sinuous against the rock. A creature moved, slithering as if in tune with the breath of the cave itself. Help me! The voice was distant yet close, an echo of my own fevered imagination or some tortured soul trapped in the depths of despair. The tendrils of that voice coiled around my thoughts, anchoring me into an existence of dread and chaos. I fumbled backward into the wall, my heart pounding like a war drum against the muted background. Is it you? I screamed desperately into the void, a futile yearning for connection, for sanity amid the chaos. No answer came, but the whisper transformed, morphing into something darker, more taunting. Love has no place in the depths, let it go. The words didn't just echo, they crawled over my skin, slinking through the cracks in my resolve, igniting fear that burned like acid in my veins. Suddenly, a chilling draft slithered through the chamber, snatching at the flickering luminescence, dimming the light until I was once more encased in darkness. From the depths of blackness, phantoms formed, towering shadows twisted and elongated, their forms contorting as if in eternal agony. Were they suffering? Or were they seeking something I dare not comprehend? I shone my fading flashlight at them, but it flickered and sputtered, winking in and out of existence, teasing my sanity. Then, as it blinked back to life, I caught a horrifying glimpse of what had emerged. A figure, grotesque yet heartbreakingly familiar, twisted into being beside the shadows. It was her, the pale face from before, her features now marred with a sunken gaze, droplets of ichor dripping from her eyes like tears. Run! You must find a way out. She rasped, her voice barely a whisper mixing with the cacophony around me. But they come for you. Dread coursed through my veins, as if the shadows, now agitated, fluttered in hunger for my very essence. Ignoring her warnings, I turned to flee deeper into the cavern. The silhouette of that callous figure haunted my thoughts, urging me onward against the tide of despair. I stumbled through the darkness, the walls narrowing dangerously around me as I felt something hot and sticky splash against my face. I barely had time to register the sensations before my foot landed in a pool of something thick and warm. The scent of iron overwhelmed my senses, and I recoiled as the ground beneath me seemed to pulse, thrumming with the life of the cave, living, breathing, absorbing my fears. The whispered hymns converged, rising to a fever pitch, reaching a crescendo that echoed like 1,000 morning souls in chorus, compelling me to listen. Then, a rift opened above me, a glimmer, a promise of escape overhead, sprawling beneath the weight of agonizing shadows. I leaped, my heart racing, muscles burning as I lunged toward the light, a beacon of hope suspended just out of reach. But as I climbed, the cave shook violently, sending ripples of dust cascading down like a rain of sorrow. The shadows lunged, claws reaching, grasping, fangs bared. No. Not like this. I screamed, and with a desperate surge, I pushed harder, fighting against the relentless pull of darkness that dared to consume everything that I was. Just as I felt the cool air of the rift engulf me, I heard the calling voices crescendo one final time, and they melded into something unrecognizable, something darker. The last thing I saw was her face contorting in agony, merging with the shadows, the clarity of her warning drowned in a tide of despair. Then, in an instant, the rift collapsed, and I was thrown into a void, where weightlessness became my nightmare, plunging downward into a darkness devoid of sound, of light, of anything familiar. And I understood, with a chilling finality, that the cave had claimed me, that whatever lay at the end of this descent awaited, insatiable and furious, eager to reveal the final horror of what I had become, that I was not merely a victim of the shadows, I was destined to become one of them. The sensation of falling wasn't the only thing gnawing at my senses. An unholy warmth pierced through the chilling void that surrounded me, suffocating and viscous, like being engulfed in tar. A scream trembled at the edge of my throat, but the liquid silence smothered it, muting my despair. As I fell deeper, a distant thrumming began to vibrate within the very essence of my being, a pulse that echoed the monstrous hymns from the cave above. Shadows loomed like long-lost memories just outside my reach, tantalizing only in the way nightmares cannot be grasped. Those specters from moments before flickered into view, visions that clawed at the edges of my psyche. I recognized them. They were the anguished souls crying out for release, their ethereal forms twisting, distorting in the depth of their torment. "Join us, be free," they beckoned, their voices intertwining with the darkness, weaving a melody that promised liberation, yet their eyes glowed with a predatory hunger. "Let me go!" I screamed, words echoing through the murk as I plummeted further, desperation clawing at my heart. But the shadows only laughed, a cacophony of sorrow that curled around me like smoke, filling my lungs with something ancient and pure. It was not mere air, it was the essence of all those who had once stood where I stood, and had succumbed. That my descent felt interminable, each moment stretching into eternity. Then, abruptly, I felt solid ground beneath my feet. The sensation jolted through me, a cruel mockery of my hopes. I stumbled and caught myself on a boulder, its surface slick and cold, pulsing with a life of its own. As I steadied myself, chilling dampness hung thick in the air, and I became aware of the wet silence surrounding me, the absence of the distant whispers that had accompanied me. My body trembled as I turned, instinct urging me to seek any semblance of light or change in the oppressive gloom. Before me, an archway loomed, a jagged portal carved into the cavern itself. Hanging above it were iridescent stones, glowing eerily like eyes peering down upon me. They shimmered in waves of blue and green, beckoning, promising salvation. But I knew better than to trust the beguiling whispers of this place. I had heard the song of deception one too many times, yet, I could feel my curiosity mounting. Something pulled me closer, an irresistible need to know what lay beyond the arch. Perhaps not all was lost, perhaps there were answers that would lead me back to the surface. With every inch I traveled toward the archway, the atmosphere thickened, almost bubbling with expectancy. Tendrils of shadows wriggled around my ankles, whispering secrets of ancient rituals and paths taken by countless souls who had relinquished their desires. They clawed at my heart, reminding me of the promises of freedom that lay buried in darkness. As I crossed the threshold, the air shifted, the glow of the stones engulfed me in a luminescent embrace, illuminating the cavern in fleeting swathes of vibrant color. The ground beneath me pulsed like a heartbeat, synchronizing with the tremors of a world within a world, and I felt the cave's central essence turning, shifting to draw me deeper into its hunger. This inner sanctuary pulsated with ominous energy, abandonment palpable in the air. Here, the walls breathed, exhaling tortured memories from those who had succumbed to the cave before me. Vague shapes surged through the shadows, their unearthly forms desperate for connection, for recognition. Their mouths writhed in soundless screams, and their hollow eyes bore into my soul searching for solace, or perhaps a vessel. And then I felt a sensation blossoming in my chest like fire and ice intertwined. Images unfolded within me, visions of a life I had once cherished and the love I had lost. The shadow that had promised release morphed into a grotesque parody of the passion we shared, unveiling the extent of what my heart had thrown away in the face of despair. "Let go," a voice whispered again, this time clearer, more commanding. It was my own voice, flayed of emotions, devoid of hope. "She is gone, swallowed by shadows. You must embrace it." "No." I screamed back, clenching my fists against the tide of sorrow. "I want to become one of you." But as I stood defiantly, the ground trembled violently, shaking with warning. Dark shapes gathered in the periphery, their whispers rises into a frenzy, demanding my surrender, my essence. My pulse quickened. I was a lantern in a storm of darkness, flickering fragilely against the shadow's encroaching embrace. Suddenly, among the thrumming chaos, a sound sliced through, a cracking, like frozen earth splintering under heavy frost. My heart seized, realizing with icy dread that beneath my feet the ground cracked wider, revealing a chasm that seemed to breathe with an insatiable yearning. And just as the shadows leapt to claim me, I heard her voice once more, clear amidst the cacophony, calling me back from the edge. Don't surrender. Before I could process her words, the earth beneath me crumbled away, and in that split second as I was pitched into the pit of oblivion, I grasped the essence of my own despair, a dark tide that surged, relentless, marrying me to the place of lost souls forevermore. A singular thought echoed through my mind in those fleeting moments before the plunge, sealing my fate. What if this was never a cave? What if this was merely the beginning of a reckoning I could never escape? The void swallowed me whole, a gravitational pull connecting me to an incomprehensible depth. Darkness enveloped my senses, clinging to my skin like the remnants of long-forgotten memories. I fell through a heavy silence, the world above fading into nothingness as an all-consuming whisper echoed through my mind, an invitation tangled in despair. When I hit the ground, it was not a hard surface but a soft, yielding texture that shifted beneath me, each movement spreading an unsettling warmth. I lay still, heart racing in the oppressive gloom, as particles of dust floated around me in the thick air, illuminated by an otherworldly glow that surged like flames a mere breath away. Slowly, I pushed myself up, my hands sinking into putrid soil, slime coating my palms and sending shivers skittering up my spine. I could taste iron in the air, pungent and sharp, mingling with something rotten and sweet, a sickening concoction that made my stomach churn. Uneasiness crawled along my skin, pushing me to my feet. In the half-light, shapes shifted, darting around the periphery of my vision, flitting out of reach when I looked directly at them. Though a paralyzing fear crept into my heart, a primal need urged me onward, a desire to discover the other side of this sinister veil. The cavern yawned before me like the maw of a beast, dripping with an unnameable sorrow, but strangely organized, a mosaic of darkness and shadow collating into sickening forms. Some swirled amidst one another, others clung to the walls, beggaring attention with movements like fevered limbs. They were remnants of the lost, and I could feel their despair writhing through the air, wrapping around my throat like a vice. "Help me," came a voice, slithering through the gloom. It bore no substance yet resonated within my bones. I turned frantically, searching for the owner, something primal within me desiring connection. Shadows shifted, pooling around an opaque source, a darkness deeper than the surrounding shadows, pregnant with expectation. There, in that darkened mass, a face materialized, the visage of a once living being twisted into an expression of anguish. Sunken eyes brimmed with tears of molten sorrow, a mouth opened wide, but no sound did escape, only a grey mist spilled forth, swirling around me like a fog that it felt all too familiar. The echoes of longing tugged at my insides. "What do you want?" I croaked, voice trembling, leaping out to surge with courage against the choking despair. "Join us," the voice rasped, now a chorus of untold pain. "Be part of this eternity." I shook my head violently, my hair tangling like seaweed, yet even as I fought, something deep within me stirred, an echo of another life, of another promise that had slipped away. But the memories were shrouded in a hazy mist, elusive. "No, not me," I gasped, stumbling back, colliding with a solid form that eclipsed the space behind me. Cold flesh pressed against my back, and the realization hit hard. A human shape formed around me, offering no solace, only a ghastly echo of warmth coupled with decay. I turned, dread curling within me. The face staring back was another shadow, similar yet distinct, someone I should know but could not summon the memory. A chill coursed through my veins, recognizing the same wild-eyed desperation I felt clawing at my throat. "Forget!" It screamed through earth-splintered teeth. "Forget the living. We are offerings to the dark." As I backed away from the encroaching horror, the air thickened, vibrating with a primal sound, a low growl that resonated through my bones, a creature deeper within, roused by my presence. It slumbered beneath layers of despair, awakening to hungry whispers. I had no idea how many were trapped in this place, bound by their own regrets and fears. Shadows shifted in the corners of my vision, wild and chaotic, writhing in ecstatic desperation. And they were speaking again, a disturbing melody weaving through the oscillating air. "Join the dance, find the eternal." Panicked, I stumbled back toward the archway, retracing my steps, the weight of countless eyes upon me. increasing with each backward glance, urging me to succumb, to dance with despair. Then, as if sensing my retreat, the voice from the dark shifted, screaming in rage and longing. Run if you will, but be warned, the real horror lies not in shadows but within yourself. With adrenaline coursing through my veins, I pivoted to flee, but before I could reach the archway, the ground split beneath my feet again, tossing timber and stone into the air. A roiling mass of darkness erupted behind me, tendrils reaching out as if they could pull the very essence of my soul into their abyss that I barreled towards the archway, heart racing as it loomed dangerously close. The specters roared in protest, their cries merging into a dreadful crescendo threatening to drown out my sanity. Suddenly, a hand shot out from the darkness, seizing my ankle, dragging me back toward the maw of despair. I screamed, clawing at the cool stone, the scent of blood and perspiration mingling in the thick air. Desperation unleashed primal strength. I kicked my legs wildly, feeling the grip loosen. Just as I broke free, a shadowy figure lunged forward, a parting gift for my struggle, clutching a shard of iridescent stone. The moment the cold rock touched my skin, it ignited with blinding light, erupting into crackling tendrils that swept the darkness back momentarily. But in that fleeting sense of hope, the shadows swelled and writhed faster, and the cave seemed to pulse with a furious heartbeat, filling the air with an unbearable pressure that I dared not look back as I barreled through the archway, propelled by instinct and fear, convinced that whatever had been left behind would have its reckoning, and if I turned back now, the abyss would seize me for good. Just outside the threshold, something rattled in the air, a hollow note vibrating with malicious intent. The voice of those who lost hope surged once more, whispering in the chamber behind me. Remember us. The ground shuddered beneath me, the cavern's lust for my essence palpable as a violent tremor struck. The shadows had not forsaken me, they merely waited in the depths. As I raced ahead into the blinding light, a single fear gripped me: had I truly escaped? And were the whispers of the lost truly gone, or only biding time until they could claw their way back to me? Behind me, a dreadful cacophony crescendoed, a symphony of shadows that promised my return. As I flung myself into the light, I felt the familiar warmth evaporate, the reality closing in. And above it all, in the heart of darkness, a voice called to me once more, echoing my name soft yet unyielding: don't forget. The air was stilled, an eerie silence settling over the landscape as I stumbled forward, disoriented yet desperate to escape the grip of the unholy place I had just fled. My heart thundered in my chest, each beat a fractured reminder of what I had left behind. I forced myself to look back towards the cavern, its entrance now merely a gaping mouth of shadow. The light from behind me felt like a fragile cocoon, yet the darkness loomed ominously, shrieking in silence. Each step deeper into the forest felt like a promise I couldn't keep. The trees twisted unnaturally, branches stretching like gnarled fingers towards the storm-gray sky. The air thickened with a damp oppression, heavy and suffocating, intertwining with the remnants of the foul miasma I had encountered moments ago. I shook, partly from the chill, partly from the echoes of those voices haunting and tearful, danced mockingly at the edge of my subconscious that I stumbled into a small clearing, the ground littered with mossy stones and withered leaves that crunched ominously underfoot. A sense of something watching, lurking, gripped me tightly, impossible to ignore. I was not alone. My eyes darted around, searching for the source of my discomfort. Shadows cast by ancient trees flickered malevolently, shapes transforming into nocturnal silhouettes too quick, too deliberate. The pit of my stomach twisted as I reflected back on the face I had encountered, its hollow eyes brimming with sorrow, the unyielding dread that had seeped into my soul. In that moment, a profound sorrow unfurled within me, contradicting my survival instinct and gnawing empathy for those lost souls craving acknowledgement. What sacrifice had led to their binding? Would they truly haunt me until I answered their echo? Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush pulled me from my musing. I turned sharply, adrenaline spiking as a burst of movement flickered across the tree line. My breath quickened at the sight of something darting between the trees. A slender figure, too quick to register. Was it human? Or something more insidious? Panic-stricken, I stalked backward until my back met the rough bark of an ancient oak. "Show yourself," I demanded, my voice wavering as I strained to peer into the murky depths of the foliage. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage, as I clutched the shard of stone like a lifeline. The darkness behind the trees responded with a swooshing sound, branches whipping and falling, leaving me alone in my trembling, yet something else lay within that sound. A whisper soft, inviting a tantalizing promise, beckoning me to draw closer to the shadows. "We are waiting for you, no," I thought, shaking my head violently, heart thrumming a warning to flee. But the whisper persisted, wrapping around my thoughts like serpents, luring me with tales of the darkness I had left behind. Shadows coalesced at the edge of the grove, weaving together in a knot of blackness, forming a figure. A woman, her face framed in twisted locks, eyes like deep wells filled with anguish, stepped forward. Her fingers reached imploringly, clutching at the air like she'd been reborn from the abyss. "You know me, don't you? You can't forget." Each syllable resonating with the pain I had seen mirrored in the faces within that cave. The anathema of recognition clawed at the edges of my consciousness. The shard pulsed in my hand, warm and strangely comforting, yet I felt its link to the darkness closing in around me. "In the shadows you can find what you're missing," she whispered, and for a heartbeat, I hesitated. Hope twinkled in the dim depths of her eyes, a promise entwined with despair. "Find us again. Return to the darkness, and you will understand." I stumbled back, the world tilting as the history of my choices loomed terrifyingly close. I defaced the shadows where my fears lay, but was it courage to confront them again, or was it confinement? "Please no," I gasped, collapsing to my knees, frozen by the weight of what this could mean. The urge to flee surged through my limbs, but I couldn't escape the gravity of her captive gaze. Then, emotion surged, the urge unfurling within me, like a dark cloud creeping rampantly, forcing me to confront the truth of my own existence. There was more I had concealed, and it was calling for reckoning. Suddenly, the air chilled, the whisper morphing into a feral growl, threatening to rend apart the very fabric of my being. The shadows seemed alive with malicious intent, crowding at the edges of my vision as they shivered hungrily. "Don't turn away," the woman urged, grasping for me as if I were the lifeline to her existence, the connection severed too painfully. Just then, a blinding flash swept through the clearing, momentarily illuminating the faces I had seen in the cavern, twisted expressions filled with longing. My heart dropped in recognition, their despair flared into my consciousness, grasping deep down into my soul. With every breath, the air thickened with desire and fear intermingled, compounding into an unbearable tension that I felt it then, the shift in the air. The shadows swirled violently, forcing me back against the tree, weaving tighter around my limbs. The trees began to rustle and bend, snapping ominously. And then, with a quake that rattled the ground beneath me, the shadows coalesced into a coiling mass, erupting towards me in an inky tsunami of despair. "Come dance with us," echoed the chorus once more, thick with anguish and hunger, and as I realized the truth, the light fractured, consumed by shadows that reached out, searching for their pull once again. "Don't forget." The woman's voice sliced through the darkness one last time as the shadows ensnared me completely. In that chilling moment, I understood I had not yet escaped. The true horror had merely begun. The shadows clung to me like an inevitable shroud, their grip tightening with malicious intent as I was pulled deeper into their chilling embrace. Despite my panicked thoughts urging me to fight, I could feel a strange pull, a reluctant resignation settling in my bones. The woman's voice carved through the dissonance. "You must remember," she hissed, her breath frigid against the warm air. The blackness enveloped me, transforming my surroundings into a suffocating void. It whispered secrets forgotten, stories drenched in darkness, revealing the despair of every soul trapped in this wretched place. I stumbled, disoriented, through a swirling tempest of shadow and loss, aware that the boundaries between my own fears and theirs were fraying, bleeding into one another. As I pressed on, the ground beneath me appeared to shift, transforming from earth to cold stone that felt alive, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath my feet. I could hear the mournful echoes of lost souls, faint weeping morphed into guttural howls that clawed at my sanity, urging me to succumb to the overwhelming horror that surrounded me. Panic surged through me, a frenzied fight against what I feared was becoming a part of me. "Look up," the woman whispered, her voice a siren song draped in familiarity and dread. It wrapped around my thoughts like a warm blanket, stirring the embers of memories long buried. I hesitated, knowing that whatever lay above me within the disordered shadows would be harrowing. But my body responded on instinct to her command, drawing me upwards. In the depths of this nightmarish landscape, a flicker of light burst forth, illuminating ragged silhouettes that shifted and coiled. Faces emerged from the dark, twisted, sorrowful, each etched with their unfinished tales, their mouths moving in silent cries. The air grew thick with malice and yearning, filling my lungs with an acrid scent that made me retch. The light brightened, revealing more of the clearing, disfigured trees and grotesquely gnarled roots, all woven together like a nightmarish tapestry. I could see them now, the souls, entangled in an unending dance of despair, endlessly repeating their last moments. Their tears soaked into the earth, feeding it with sorrow, creating roots of anguish. A single thought echoed through them, a primal longing that resonated with the very depths of my being: remember us. The edges of my consciousness blurred as the memories surged, each vivid enough to choke me with regret. Friends long lost, incendiary moments of pain and choice, pieces of me I thought were carefully tucked away, each face flashing before me like a strobe light. I realized then, every soul I had encountered bore a fragment of an unspeakable truth, a truth I had denied. The weight of their sorrow washed over me, pulling me into their rhythm, and I found myself swaying, a horrified participant in a dance of despair. I could no longer discern between my own grief and theirs, the distinction faded into nothingness. Suddenly, a violent howl tore me from their grasp. A dark presence surged forward, fissuring the fabric of twilight with shadowy claws outstretched. It shimmered, a grotesque amalgamation of anguish and rage, its eyes aflame with the depthless void. "You are not one of them," it screeched, a sound layered with 1,000 wails that rattled my bones. The ground quaked beneath me as I struggled against the mounting dread that in a moment of desperate clarity, I realized my only way to survive was to confront the shadows festering inside of me, to acknowledge the torment I had hidden away. "I remember," I cried out, desperation lacing my voice like a song of survival. "I see you." But the beast only roared, its form entwining with the shadows lurking just outside of the light, its body writhing and elongating, coiling tighter until I could feel its breath like ice on my skin. I collapsed to the ground, despair ripping through my chest as those lost faces flickered wildly within the chaos, pleading with me to witness their suffering. Then, all at once, I felt a surge of energy coursing through me. It was both terrifying and exhilarating, as if I was tapping into a wellspring of power I never knew resided within. The figures in the shadows ceased their writhing, hanging on to my every word. I had the power to absorb their pain, to free them or remain shackled by their eternal wails. "Together, we will break this cycle," I whispered, a last shred of defiance rising within me. But as I formed the thought, the monstrosity lunged forward, disrupting my moment of clarity. Its gaze seared into my soul, the overwhelming pressure of its hunger clawing at the barriers of my mind. "Do not dare!" it bellowed, the air crackling with its wrath. With a deafening roar, the shadows erupted around me, chasing down my resolve. And amid the chaos split the earth beneath my feet, engulfing me into a bottomless chasm, sharp stones and jagged edges spiraling into darkness. As I plummeted, a single thought echoed in my mind, dragging me down into the depths of despair: the worst horror was yet to come, and I was only just beginning to uncover the darkness within. The weight of nothingness wrapped around me as I fell, a descent through the void, ionized silence filling the expanse. My heart raced, pounding against the cages of my ribs, each thud a reminder of everything I was about to leave behind. Air rushed past my ears, a haunting lullaby that grew louder with every heartbeat until it morphed into an anguished wail, a chorus of countless souls echoing through the dark that I braced for impact, but the ground never arrived. Instead, I was drawn into a boundless abyss, floating amid an otherworldly spectrum of ethereal lights that pulsed rhythmically, casting faint glimmers against the surrounding void. Shadows etched themselves into the vibrant colors, twisting and shifting like tortured reflections screaming for release. Suddenly, an icy grip coiled around my ankle. Malaise washed over me, cold tendrils wrapping tighter with each pulse, pulling me deeper into the clamoring silence. Panic enveloped me as I flayed my limbs, fighting against the unseen force, but it was futile. It feasted on my terror, mayhem igniting the darkness around me. A scream clawed its way up my throat, a soundless plea for escape. I could feel the maw of the abyss yawning wider, the whispers rushing past my ears, an insidious, haunting litany of regret and pain. Faces materialized from the shadows, a gathering of the lost and damned, their hollow eyes depicting infinite horror, their gaunt faces twisted in eternal agony. "Join us," they chanted, their voices weaving together into a mournful tapestry. "End the suffering. Embrace the darkness." An overwhelming pull dragged me downwards, threads of total despair weaving their way into my heart. My resolve flickered, taunted by the promise of release they offered. I could give and join the sorrowful procession of lost souls condemned to wander through eternity. But as my vision blurred, a spark ignited within me, a memory flickering to life. That I remembered the warmth of sunlight against my skin, the laughter shared with those I loved, faces alive with joy, untainted by fear. "No!" I hissed, shaking my head as if it could sever the invisible bond, defiance blossoming against the flood of shadows. "I choose life." In defiance of their allure, the darkness twisted violently, the shadows raging against my resistance. They writhed and coiled, a tempest of anguish that howled as one being. "You cannot escape. You belong to us." The voices clamored, their pitch rising with fury, but behind their cacophony, something else flickered, momentary echoes of appreciation from those who had succumbed. I wasn't alone, I had tasted their pain and regret, but I still sought the light. The specters became unsteady, their movements jerky, as if my renewed spirit gnawed at the fabric of their existence. In a singular moment of resolve, I drew upon the energy within me, summoning the strength buried beneath the terror. The darkness surged back, struggling against my pull, and as I channeled my emotion, the abyss began to part, revealing a tunnel of blinding light that beckoned from afar. "Remember who you are," the woman's voice urged, a sudden anchor amidst the chaos. My thoughts roared, reconnecting the threads of my being, reminding me of purpose. I reached for the light, stretching beyond the clutches of the abyss, silently chanting to the lost souls, "You are not forgotten. We are still here." But just as hope surged, a slicing cold wrapped around my throat, like icy fingers tightening in a vice. I gasped, the light flickering in response to my fear, growing fainter with each desperate breath. A guttural growl emerged from the shadows, primal and beastly, the embodiment of fury converging upon me. "I will not let you go." The creature bellowed, at once a promise and a threat that coursed through the darkness, filling the air with its rancid stench. "You will join them." As it lunged for me, the shadows bore down fiercely, the chasm surrounding me fracturing into a spiderweb of darkness, and I could feel them closing in, an infinite tide crashing against my very essence. My heart thundered in my chest, drowning out the pleas from the lost souls as they fought to reclaim my spirit. That I flailed against the weight of despair, the shimmer of light growing dimmer until, in one last, desperate act, I unleashed everything, the pain, the memory, the love, the unyielding hope flooding forth like a tidal wave. And then, the unthinkable happened, the ground beneath my feet tore apart, and as I felt the entity's claws puncture my skin, time seemed to fracture. The world erupted in a kaleidoscope of blinding light, consumed in chaos as I screamed out a scream that echoed through the void, a sound that sent tremors shivering deep into the heart of darkness. That in that very moment, I lost everything I once knew, the dizzying light enveloped me completely, and then silence. A profound hush settled over the darkness, a stillness that felt both serene and ominous. I blinked, attempting to adjust to my new reality, and what I saw next sent every shred of logic spiraling into horror. An endless hall of mirrors stretching beyond eternity, each reflected visage revealing the faces of those I had lost, yet somehow they were all me. As I stepped closer, I saw my own terrified visage distort and twist, mouths muttering secrets, fingers pointing at an invisible truth. Then suddenly, one of the surfaces shattered, sending shards of glass cascading around me, a swirling vortex of reflective chaos. Emerging from the shattered surface was a figure clad in darkness, a maddening smile cutting through the confusion as it whispered my name. "Welcome back." I stood frozen, heart hammering in my chest as the figure emerged, darkness slithering off its form like mist. My breath quickened, dread clawing at my throat as I met its gaze, my own reflection, twisted and horrific, yet imbued with a familiarity that left me trembling. This was no stranger, this was the part of me I had fought so desperately to escape, a shadowy version of myself that had lingered in the depths of my mind, waiting for the perfect moment to rise. "Welcome back," it repeated, its voice a haunting echo of my own, thick with mockery and pity. The smile split its face unnaturally wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth that glinted in the dim light of the endless hall of mirrors. I couldn't tear my eyes away, the truth dawning on me like a weight dropped from a great height. The horror I had faced in the cavern, it had never been external. The agony I had witnessed, the despair I had felt, it had all been a reflection, a mirror showing me the parts of myself I had buried so deep. "No," I gasped, shaking my head violently, desperately denying the reality before me. But I could feel the truth wrapping its tendrils around my heart, squeezing until I struggled to breathe. "You're not me. You're not real," I shouted, panic slicing through the facade of bravery. Each reflection ripple whispered the same secret, creating an anthem of solitude that tore at my sanity. I was the darkness. "Oh, but I am more real than you'll ever comprehend," it taunted, stepping closer until the air crackled with charged tension. "You summoned me, remember? Every regret, every ounce of guilt that has seeped into your very being has only given me power. We are intertwined, me, the darkness, and you, the light that seeks to escape." The hall began to warp and shift as the reflections multiplied, breaking into fractured pieces that surrounded me. I felt my own essence slipping, my will to fight waning against the overwhelming realization that I couldn't rid myself of what I had become. The shadows lurked just beneath the surface of each mirrored projection, a reminder of all the trauma that clung to my soul like plaid upon the earth. "No!" I yelled, though my voice wavered uncertainly, echoing through the hall like a ghostly wail. "I want to let you take me." I turned, searching for an escape, but every direction led to more mirrors, each replaying my darkest moments, exposing every scar that lined my psyche. The faces watching me through the glass were contorted, enraptured by my pain, and I could feel the shadows stretching their hands out, inviting me to embrace the chaos within. The dread swallowed me, a tide crashing in waves, engulfing every flicker of hope I had left. I felt like a marionette with tangled strings, helpless to resist the pull of the darkness, corroding me from the inside out. I had wanted to be free, to forge my own path, yet here I was, staring into the eyes of an entity that thrived on despair, the very culmination of every fight I'd faced before. "Join us," it cooed, tilting its head, the jagged smile cutting deeper. "You belong with me, your truth is riddled with failure. Let me show you the way to release forward. Let yourself embrace it." "No!" I screamed again as the darkness constricted tighter, my own cries clawing at my throat. I struggled against the heavy tendrils wrapping around my limbs, the suffocating grip dragging me down into a pit of despair. The air grew thick, choking me even more with every desperate breath. Suddenly, from within the chaos, a voice broke through, soft yet resolute. "Remember your light." My heart jolted as the warmth resonated deep in my core, igniting fragments of hope buried within the despair. I turned, seeking its source, and saw a reflection not of the darkness but of the loving faces that had once filled my heart, friends, family, those who had stood by me during devastating times, their eyes glistening with an unyielding faith. "Don't surrender," they urged, their voices harmonizing into a comforting chorus. "You are more than the shadows. There is light within you, waiting to shine through." As I embraced their encouragement, the binding grip of darkness began to loosen. Fueled by newfound determination, I confronted the twisted reflection of myself, the shadow that represented every ounce of fear and regret. "I will not let you win," I declared, my voice echoing with authority as a blinding light burst forth from within, illuminating the hall of mirrors and shattering the darkness around me. "No!" it howled, contorting and writhing as the shadows recoiled from my newfound light. I embraced it, letting the empathetic warmth surge through me, tearing down the barriers I had constructed. Waves of bright energy cascaded outward, illuminating every reflective surface, each shard casting reflections that showed my truth beauty amid the pain, love amidst the loss. A blinding flash erupted through the chamber as the darkness shattered into a million fragments, engulfing the hall in light. I could feel the ties holding me to the shadows sever, and in that moment, I chose to stand firm, letting the light penetrate the depths of my soul, enveloping me in a cocoon of warmth that drove the shadows back, and then, in the crescendo of brilliance, everything fell silent. I opened my eyes, breathless, heart racing with the aftermath of a battle fought right within my core. I was standing at the entrance of the cavern, the darkness behind me, consumed by the light that now sparkled around me. But as I scanned my surroundings, dread seeped back in. Shadows still lingered just outside my field of vision, the specter of the darkness, a reminder that my fight was far from over. It would always exist, but now I had the power to confront it on my terms. That I turned away from the entrance, my heart heavy yet resolute. This was not the end, it was just the beginning. And with every breath I took, I heard the whisper dance in the shadows behind me, an echo of survival intertwined with an insatiable hunger. Don't forget, we shall meet again.